The last part of this chapter's exercise is to cover how to create a shape tween. So to get started, you'll see that I've got all my layers still here, and the current rendering or the play of this is having the airplane go up and down. The shadow effect is following along, both scaling and changing the alpha right here on frame 15. The sun is spinning, and the bird is flying along a motion path that we created in part 3 video. The last step, as I said, is to create ourselves a shape tween. So, with the sun layer selected, I'm going to go and insert a new layer and rename this one to the moon. Again, because all the other layers are extended to 30 frames and the one right above it is 30 frames, it then gives me a buffer window for 30 frames. The very first frame, this is again called a blank keyframe, awaiting for me to apply something to frame 1 of the moon layer. In the library section, there actually is a moon located inside of here. So I'm going to drag the moon into the scene. Let's drop it right there. And at frame 1, the moon's going to appear. Now, in order for a shape tween to work properly, it actually has to be a broken down object. What you see right here with the blue box around there, as well as with the symbol in the library area, we are working with a symboled object, which will not allow us to shape tween. So the next thing we're going to do is decide where or what is this object going to change into or morph into. That's the idea behind a shape tween. A shape tween says, for example, I currently have a blue moon and I want to slowly degrade into a yellow moon. Or I have a moon and I want it to change into a cloud, which is what we're going to do for our next example. So the moon is going to exist for a portion of time, so it's not tweening the whole time. So I'm going to extend it to exist until, let's say, frame 10. And at frame 10 is when I'm going to press the F6 key or right-click and choose Insert Keyframe. And again, to insert a keyframe says that we are going to copy and paste what was on the prior frame and make it available at this frame. So at frame, I believe we're at frame 10, or frame 11, we now need to break this particular moon down so that way it is enabled to be a shape tween. So to break an object down, you can go to Control B as in break, or go to Modify, Break Apart. And again, there's the notation how to do the shortcut. So you'll do this, in this case, just one time, just enough to get the dotted or the pixels appearing there. And then we're going to go to frame 30. And at frame 30, I don't want the moon anymore. I could, but I don't want it anymore. I'm actually going to convert my moon into a cloud over this 15 frame process or 20 frame process here. So in order to do so, in order for me to get the cloud to appear right here at frame 30, I need to change what we have currently, which is a frame, into a blank keyframe. So I'm going to right click at frame 30 and choose Insert Blank Keyframe. And you'll notice that the moon has disappeared, and here at frame 30, can you see it? It's a white box there with the white circle showing through. That basically says I'm a blank keyframe and I'm waiting for you to throw something on my frame. So we're going to grab the cloud that we have and we're going to put it right on top of where we think the moon is at. Now if you can't really see where the moon is at, there's a nifty little tool called the onion skinning. Onion skinning is located in the lower parameter down here, and if you turn on onion skinning, it basically will show you the progression of an animation using these scrubbers that we have right here. Now that looks like there's a lot of action taking place, and realistically all we're really focusing in on is the moon to the cloud, but because we've not tweened this, you're not seeing the moon show up. So in this case, we don't want to tween the whole layer because if you recall, back at frame 1, that moon is still a symboled object. It's not been broken down to a shape, so a shape tween actually wouldn't work here. But I do want the shape tween to take place between, as I said, frame 11 and frame 30. So I'm going to right click inside of here and choose Create Shape Tween. Now you'll see that this is what happens when you don't have two objects of a broken down bitmapped version. One of them is still the symbol. And we know that at frame 11 we already broke down the moon. You can see it's dotted and pixelated. However, at frame 30, when I threw the cloud in there, I got sidetracked by turning on the onion skin and I forgot to break it down. So Control B or go to Modify, Break Apart, and this will convert our cloud into a bitmapped object. And then just click off down here inside of the layers area, and you'll see when you do so, this line will snap to a solid line, letting us know that a connection has been made between the two different shapes, and it's going to morph it from one into the other. Okay, I'm going to turn off the onion skinning. It's now distracting at this point. It did help me to ensure that my cloud and my moon were on top of each other. So I'm turning it off. I'm going to go back to frame 1 and press the enter key. And you can see, for a short period of time, the moon holds shape and then it converts into a cloud. And the moon is holding shape right here because of this. And then here's the conversion. I'm going to press Control Enter to run it. So a Swift file is created. And you can see the sun is still spinning as we saw before. The airplane is moving up and down based on our classic tween. The shadow is following along with the airplane based on our motion tween. The bird is flying around as a symboled object that is following a guided path, and that path or that animation is taking place with a classic tween. It cannot be done with the motion tween. And last but not least, our moon is converting into a cloud via a shape tween. So here you have all the different layers that were available there. We also covered in, I believe, part 2, how to create ourselves a motion editor or utilizing the motion editor. You'll notice that the motion editor in this particular case is blanked out because I have no symbols selected. The motion editor only works on symboled objects. If the last thing we wanted to do is go into the motion editor and change the skew of an object, a symboled object, I'll go back to my good old shadow effect right here at frame 15. If I want to make it look like so that the airplane is coming in at an interesting angle, I'm going to click on this. My shadow obviously is selected. Therefore, when I go into the motion editor, it's not blanked out. It has the curves there that we're expecting. And if you scrub down a little bit or scroll down a little bit, you'll see that there's a skew X. So if I were to increase my skew X right here, this will change the angle of it in one direction, and this will change it into the other direction. So we'll try that out. And then going back to frame 30, we don't really want it to be skewed at all, so I'm going to type back in 0. So it wraps it back up to the original way that it was. And press the enter key, and you can kind of see the airplanes going through a skewing process there. Hopefully these videos were very helpful and made sense to you, and you understand how to use a classic tween. That's the purple background with the solid line, a shape tween on non-symboled objects, and then the new motion tween, or the newer motion tween, which is the blue background and the diamond showing through. Have a great day.